So then it was kind of like, okay, well, if my self-talk was powerful enough to bring me to the point where I was so low, that I was going to take it, well, then my self-talk could be powerful enough to create the life that I want. It could be powerful enough to make me feel empowered and confident and want to, become someone better and someone more and tap into the power that I have. If it could really, if it was so bad on the inside, then it could be so good on the inside as long as I had the tools and the know-how how to get it there.
Welcome back to the Awakening Her podcast. Today I am sitting down with Ben Milston. Ben is a mindset and transformation coach, and he helps people to heal depression and anxiety, to discover and step into more hope, happiness, and inner peace. In this conversation, Ben is talking about how we can shift our perspective to live a better life. And above and beyond that, there are so many nuggets of wisdom in here on how to change your mindset, yes, but how to really live a life that you love and how to move forward in your own life through awakening and self-development. There's so much here about growth and discovery and shifting your perspective, and Ben especially loves speaking to beginners. So his approach is so relatable, yet the message he has is so deep. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I know you're gonna love it as well. I did wanna give a little heads up on a trigger mention. Ben, in his interview, as he's speaking about his own life, talks about and mentions suicide and suicidal tendencies and thoughts as part of his transformation process. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Without further ado, let's welcome Ben onto the show. Hello, Ben. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited you're here. How you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much, Talia, for having me. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, this is going to be a really good conversation. I'm very excited as well. So let's just start by hearing a little bit about you. Who are you? Where are you? What is your business? I would love to just get to know you a little more.
Thank you. So you said my name is Ben Milston. I'm a mindset and transformational coach. I'm coming from the East Coast of Australia at the moment. And I help people who are new to the self-development world to move through and overcome the fears, the doubts, the inner critic that helps and causes depression, anxiety, overwhelm to manifest in their life, to show up as symptoms in their life, um, through shifting perspective and their perception on their reality. And this came to me for a while. I had no idea where I was going or what I was doing, and I was on my kind of self-discovery journey for about 10 years now. And this came after about a decade long plus of heavy depression, anxiety, substance abuse, attempted suicide. And it was kind of I don't actually want to kill myself, but I need out. I need to stop feeling this pain that I'm feeling. And after trying to escape it in every way, shape, form that I tried escaping it from, then it was finally, all right, well, what if I, look inside? And so I kind of read my first self-discovery book, The Power of Now. And that led me on a massive kind of spiritual journey, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what self-discovery is. It's a journey into the universe. It's a journey into ourselves, into the reality of what is. And it was through my own kind of journey, through my own realizations and transformations that led me to the point where I feel really able and not only able but just excited to share my journey and to share ideas about where I've been and what I've had to overcome, and to help people as well, because I know there's so many people are feeling that lack of belonging, feeling that lack of fitting in, and that separation between I'm a human, but there's this talk on the universe, and I am this and they are that, and this kind of separation that just is such a big human problem, I think. and trying to just bring light and lightness to, I think, the experience and the journey that is life.
That is so powerful and beautiful. I'm curious why you chose people who are new on the path. And then I have a follow-up question to that. But why did you choose people who are kind of newbies to the self-discovery transformation work?
Because I remember when I first started out that there's just, there's so much information out there. There's so many different techniques and tools and people talking about different stuff. And especially if you're coming into, often people find, self-discovery, self-development because they're looking for something more that their current life isn't fulfilling them with. They're looking for, that happiness or that fulfillment or purpose that their life isn't providing them. And so to go from one kind of hardness into a world where you're first kind of told and taught actually everything you've been taught up until now isn't true, or that a lot of the conditioning and programs that you've been led to believe by mainstream society isn't actually necessarily right. And that on itself is heavy and overwhelming. And then to kind of be like, here is all this massive information, go figure out who you are. Like it's rough. And I remember just kind of like the more that I read, the more that I had no idea what was going on. And it made me feel like I if I didn't have the kind of self-worth that I needed or felt I needed before, then to go into this whole new world, I just felt even lesser at first because it was just so overwhelming and so just daunting, that it can really help to have also that support, but also just certain questions asked, where there can be that kind of flow of just curiosity, and often people think, oh, this is a stupid question, or everyone around thinks I'm crazy, and these kinds of feelings because people don't understand what it means to go through a spiritual journey or an awakening, and what that can look like. And so to just have that kind of support, or have someone else know that you're not actually crazy, you're just waking up to the reality of things, and what that actually means, I think is so necessary to actually not get drowned by it all.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, you said that so well. And it's kind of like, okay, you got to go learn to love yourself. Go. Now just do it. And it's like or you learn, like, do I have to meditate? What's this tapping? What is this? Do I need it like an ascension process? Or yeah, it can be very, very overwhelming. I think you said it perfectly. There's so much out there. And it's also built, I'm curious to know your take on this, but I feel like the self-growth space is built on you're not enough. So we're going to it already feeling like I'm kind of a mess. There's things in my life I want to change. I'm not fulfilled, or whatever it is. We're going at it already feeling like this little bit of like, oh, I got to get my stuff together, and then it looks like everyone else is out there. And so it looks like everybody else is so much farther ahead sometimes. And so, we're reading these books by these powerful seeming authors, and it just fuels that not enoughness, or I'm not disciplined enough. I'm not motivated enough. I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. and doing yoga. Like, are you sure am I doing the right thing? And so do you find that with self-growth and manifestation, all this stuff, it's kind of built on not enoughness in some ways, or can be interpreted that way anyway?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, that one of the examples that you gave, so many people will, come to me and say, like, I've tried sitting for meditation a couple of times and it's not working. And so because they're reading about, meditation, and you're supposed to find like tranquility and this inner peace and this, feeling of like oneness with the universe. And they've sat there for a couple of minutes a few times and they're not feeling it. And they're thinking, it's probably me that's not doing it right. It's not me that's not good enough to feel this. I probably don't deserve to feel this. All these, feelings, and just, why am I doing the techniques that I've been reading about and not feeling this, like, connectedness and oneness or whatever else? And because there's so much depth, firstly, into understanding the techniques and understanding the process, but also just the journey itself of not wanting to necessarily have that quick fix. I think we're in a society where, it's take a pill and you get a quick fix. And when we try and go out of that, that's the journey of self-discovery. And so it's not this quick fix, let's say a few affirmations and everything in your life will be the way you want it. It's about understanding how to just flow with the journey. It's about understanding how to, feel within the journey and to not kind of hide who you are as the process continues, but challenge yourself and go into those discomforts and see what kind of emotions come up, rather than hoping to just reach a place of bliss, as though humans don't experience sadness and pain and all the other kind of negative emotions that otherwise we've been taught are not positive emotions or not deserving emotions.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Is we need to really understand the work, whatever that means, the work in quotes, in a grounded, real life way. And it's like, you're here to experience all emotions. You are going to. And I like to use the example sometimes of, like, say you're the most, happy, self-lovey person. You've transformed yourself into this powerful person. You are still going to experience things like grief, things like sadness, things like stubbing your toe, or life doesn't go your way, or your hot water heater breaks and you have a unexpected bill, or somebody lets you down. Just because we do this inner work or we heal our main traumas, like, it doesn't mean that life isn't going to still be a myriad of different emotions. We are here to experience those emotions. Even spiritually, a soul comes into this human experience understanding to be human is senses and emotions, and there's this time and space here and these relationships. So trying to go for something to, like, thinking that all your problems are going to be taken away, or that you're never going to experience the contrast of life, is not realistic. We need more people saying, hey, I've been doing the work knee deep for decades and I still experience grief or not enoughness, or my inner child flares up with her sadness. And it's about navigating that rather than thinking that you're never going to feel it.
Yeah. And I love that, because it really is, when we look at consciousness is the thing that experiences what's going on. And depending on what vessel consciousness is in, will depend on the type of experience that it has. And so when we're in the vessel that is a human body, then we're going to experience the way that a human body experiences. And like you said, through those five senses. And when we try and block out certain feelings, when we try and block out certain emotions from coming up, and we're blocking out certain experiences that are designed to help us grow, help us understand ourselves more, help us reconnect back to ourselves more. We're essentially blocking out specific experiences that we're in this body to feel, to experience. So we're not getting the full grasp of this kind of time and space that we have to experience whatever life that we have. And so I think it's so important to if we're someone that doesn't connect to our feelings, or feels like there's bad feelings or there's wrong feelings, or there's so many people in today's day and age where crying is something that is not something that is acceptable. It's such an emotion that is so human to do, and such a release of energetic release from the body, but is seen as bad, and so it's suppressed. And just changing how we can change those kind of viewpoints and those beliefs around how we see this journey, how we see our life, how we see what emotions are supposedly good or bad, to just necessary for this time that we have, then we can actually change the way that we experience all the emotions, that we can actually learn to love the anger within inside, We can learn to love the sadness within inside, and the grieving and the trauma and all the things that we've gone through. We can learn to love those parts of us. We can learn to feel grateful for everything that we've gone through and how that it helps us develop as a consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you said about like wrong and bad emotions versus good emotions. So, yeah, joy and excitement and pleasure feels good in our body as far as our brain lights up in whatever ways and endorphins and it causes a smile. Yeah. Shame, sadness, grief doesn't feel good, but that doesn't mean it's inherently good or bad. Like there is no good or bad. It is, to talk about what your zone of genius is, it's like it's your perception, it's the story you have around it, it's what you make it mean. But to be human is equally to experience things like grief and gratitude, fear and bravery or excitement, pleasure and sadness. That isn't, there's no good or bad when it comes to those. That's something that humans have labeled. And I love that you said that there's certain things like crying, especially for men, and especially, certain cultures, it's like it's weakness, right? So for all of us, it can be like sadness means I'm not doing well. I'm sad. People want to wipe their tears and go, okay, get it together. What's wrong with me? It's not a bad thing. And I think of, I had an eating disorder for decades, and now it's been more than a decade of being, healthy and recovered from that. And I used to be so obsessed with good and bad foods, good and bad exercise, good and bad things. And that was the thing that freed me from all of it, is realizing there's no good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Also, food interacts different depending on what's going on with our mind, but that's the same with life, whether it's food or it's certain like your career or choices you've made or your whatever it is. There is no actual good and bad, and we can get caught in that trap when it comes to the emotions. So I'd love to hear, you started off by saying like helping people with their perspective, their perception of life. So do you find that people do that? We label things good or bad. And what other types of perceptions really keep us limited when we want to create, more of something or experience a better life?
Yeah, and it's funny, how we came to good and bad, because it was just yesterday that I had this kind of conversation with a client on the ideas. She was wanting to understand how we can connect back to ourselves as kind of like, the universe, and recognizing that we are the universe. We're not just like humans and then there's nature. We're like, we are nature. And we're talking about the ideas of morals, which is, this human understanding of and human created concepts of good and bad and right and wrong. And so often when we grow up, we're told, this is right or that is wrong. And from society, this is right and that is wrong. So we internalize what behavior is considered good or bad. We internalize, what specific outcomes are good or bad. And if it doesn't go our way, then it's bad, or it's a failure, or it's because I didn't do something right. And if it goes our way, then we, try and attach to that and whatever else. So it's this constant kind of like fluctuation depending on the external circumstance, on is the outcome a good outcome or a bad outcome? Did I do the right thing or the wrong thing? Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't a good outcome, it's because I did the wrong thing. And it's funny, we're talking about, well, how do we connect back to the idea of this oneness? And I said, so I started challenging the idea of, well, what is good or bad? Like she's like, oh, we're all killing the earth. And I was like, okay, when we look at, say, vines that maybe take over another plant, we don't look at that vine as being a destructive thing. That's just a part of nature that is happening. It's taking over that plant, or the weeds are taking over the plant, but it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just a what's happening at the moment. And I think, for humans, because we're so eager to try and control everything, that we are not flowing with how the universal flow can be for us, because there is this need to kind of control a specific outcome that is out of our decision. So we went further into asking, is there something that is wrong for you or right for you? She said, well, murder. I couldn't, how can we look at murder as something, that person is bad, like to murder? I said, well, we don't look at a lion murdering a zebra as bad, or us murdering cows and pigs as bad. It's only when it's like person to person, because there's that separation again between we are people and nature is everything outside of us. The universe is everything outside of us, and we're separate to that. And we, went further and said, well, what if everyone, is doing right as far as they're concerned, is doing what they feel is good, just depending on the type of conditioning and programmings that they have, the type of perception that they feel like there is a good reason why they're doing what they're doing. Even if we look at like Hitler, he thought he was doing the right thing as far as what his views are, what the way that he was brought up, the way that his perception was. And so when we look at, how this kind of perception shapes our actions, shapes our emotions, shapes our behaviors, then I think the biggest question to ask ourselves is the way that I'm feeling actually serving me right? Is the way, that the type of behavior that I have, is this serving me right? And if it's not, well, then how can I look towards my perception of things, to understanding where is that limit of maybe my understanding on what is a good outcome or a bad outcome, or what it means to be a good person or a bad person needs to shift. And it was actually funny, we had the idea of, a couple hundred years ago, it was perceived good to burn witches at the stake. That was just a good thing that people would do. And so that, really challenges the idea of, is there this good or bad, or is it just shaped by our own kind of perception on what good or bad is? And if that's the case, then what do we want to perceive?
Yeah, that's powerful. And that challenges a lot, especially when you talk about murder, right? Because there's people going, well, what, we should just murder people? But there is also like my personal values. So inherently, universally, like you said, a lion murdering a zebra or something isn't bad, but does it align with my values to go out and murder somebody for a parking spot or over a dude or something? And no, of course not. I want to be kind to the people around me, but that reminds me too of, on a soul level, like there is no good or bad, as we've been touching on. But even if you spend your entire life angry and you don't heal, and maybe you have an addiction and you never figure it out, and you never rise to your full potential, once you pass on, my perspective is, what I've seen is that your soul is always learning. So your soul, you pop out of this experience, there's nothing but love for you, and you don't even need forgiveness because you haven't actually done anything wrong. And your soul is actually still learning. Like, whoa, that was a tough life. I didn't really figure it out. Next time, I'm going to come back and I'm going to try to wake up sooner. So maybe I can heal this. And we go try again. So bringing that sort of awareness into the human to kind of go, you're never messing it up. You don't have to do anything. But as you kind of pointed to, we can start to align with, well, what do I want for myself? What do I want to experience while we're here, without all the pressure of the shoulds? Like that can be really suffocating, even if it's, I should rise to my fullest potential. I should create $1 million. I should heal this. Well, what if those no shoulds? What if your spirit team, your higher self, life itself just loved you unconditionally for what you are? Now, what do you want to create for yourself? Like away from the right and wrong and good and bad, because we live in a hologram placebo, like we truly do. And there is no actual right or wrong. It's just about choosing what you want to put your focus on. Yeah, that's just so fascinating. Is there something you want to add to that?
Yeah, and something that you really touched on, it's really important for me to just reiterate with the idea of no good or bad. By no means am I suggesting or advocating someone goes out and murders someone, because the type of emotion that is run from that kind of feeling, that comes from like a strong anger and hatred, that doesn't come from a place of conscious awareness and balance and love. And so even if my views are, universally speaking, this isn't right or wrong, I still feel that the universal oneness is love.
Mm.
That's the universal energy. And so when we're in alignment with that universal energy, when we're in alignment with our true selves and our inner selves, then it's not a matter of understanding what is right or wrong, because there is only love.
Mm.
And what is created out of that is the type of person that you are. And so peeling back the kind of conditionings and the programs that have been set on you from the mainstream society and from schooling and from parenting and childhood traumas and all of this, behind all of that is the one love that, when we're connected to that and embracing that for ourselves and for the people around us, well, then the concept of murder wouldn't be something of, should I go out and do that? Because it wouldn't be a thought to hurt someone, even if it's not, even if there isn't a good or bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And as we, go on our journey, heal, come back into our, capital S self, the true self, yeah, we won't feel the need to go out and murder people. So it's not necessarily a right or wrong morally, but it is like, what do you want to align with? And from that true, as you say, love consciousness, that wouldn't, it's oil and water. It doesn't exist in the same timelines to murder, but also be, in that place. So is basically what you're saying is, as long as we keep on the self-growth path, we won't murder people. Is that what you're saying? Guaranteed. I would love to talk to you about, people talk about limiting beliefs, right? We've heard about this for a long time. And I'd love to hear from your perception on, when someone comes to you and they really want to create something different, maybe they want partnership or they want to even just buy a home, but they have this belief around, oh, I can't, the market's here, I can't, there's no good men, there's no good women out there. Like, how do our beliefs, especially around the things we desire, how do those continually hold us back in ways that we may not even realize? I'd love to hear a bit about that.
Yeah, well, beliefs pretty much are the core concepts and ideas on how we see ourselves and how we see the world around us. And these are so ingrained, and there are so many of them actually, that for so many people, don't realize that we have certain beliefs. They're just kind of facts or truths that we see the world in. That the sun will rise tomorrow, that the sky is blue, that I can do this or I can't do that, or I'm this type of person because my dad was that type of person. Whatever the way we are experiencing our life, it's because we have so many, possibly thousands of different kinds of belief structures on just understanding what life is. And this helps us to navigate life and just interpret what's going on. So it's the kind of idea that I walk outside and I have a belief on what trees are. And so I don't get stopped, wondering what is this amazing, incredible thing that there's literally every tree is different from every other tree, and the leaves and the way that they go out. I'd never be able to drive if that's how I always saw every tree. And so mine just has this idea of, it's a tree, it's safe, it's not going to hurt me, move on. And that's a type of belief. But when they come to beliefs about what we're capable of and what we're able to do, the type of things that are possible or impossible in this life, well, that's when they can become really limiting. And one of the biggest things that I try to work with people is to just opening up to the idea of possibility. Because so often we give these kind of limitations on, I can't do this because, or it's just not going to happen because, or whatever the situation. I know for myself that when I was a kid, was diagnosed with learning difficulties and ADD and dyslexia, and that was just a kind of thing that was put on me. And okay, so I needed maybe more time and more energy to read, and I needed more patience and whatever else. But as soon as I had this kind of belief that I couldn't do it because these were my limitations, well, then it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so whenever I would try and read, it would be slow and I would mix words up. And so I'd be like, oh, I can't read. It's because of my dyslexia. I can't do that. And so for me, when I was able to question and challenge, well, what if I didn't have that? What if I just needed more practice? What if I just needed, more attention to it and more patience with myself? And I began to teach myself to speed read. And so it was this kind of this recognition of, okay, well, what else am I possibly limiting myself to? What else, is possible? And so I think one of the biggest starting points that I really recommend for everyone to take in is just this idea of like, I just don't know, just this like kind of humble feeling of there's so little that we actually know in life, in our reality. So when it comes to if something can be done or can't be done, well, we don't know, but let's try it. Let's experiment. Let's, see if we can figure out if there's a problem to something, can it be done? Can't it be done? I don't know. Let's go for it. And it just brings that kind of possibility into life that otherwise we've already affirmed to ourselves, probably for decades, that something is a certain way or isn't a certain way, and that's just how life is. And the truth is, life is so much more than the boundaries than we give it. Life is so much vaster. Life is so much more possible than what we give it. And one of the biggest things that I bring back, because we can all relate to the idea of the placebo effect, that it's this kind of, sugar pill that they'll test on patients to see whether or not the medication works. And so that's how they like test medicine. But what they're not seeing is, okay, well, what you've just done is you believed it was going to work and you just cured yourself from something that was supposedly uncurable. And you did that because you believed it worked. Why are we not investing more into this?
Yeah.
We're not, putting our energy and time more into this understanding of, okay, so you've just been told that something was incurable, and then you were told that it was curable and given a nothing pill, and you cured yourself.
Yeah.
Because of that belief, because you opened up yourself to that possibility of that kind of healing. And so, and it perplexes me, this like how placebo isn't something that's just more taught in schools, because it's, it's literally, it's there. The proof is there time and time again. And the other stories of like, there's a kid stuck under a car and the mom, without thinking, just lifts the car to kind of, get the kid out and then puts it down. Was like, oh, I didn't really think about that. And then can't lift it again because she goes back into that. It's a car. Obviously, I can't lift a car. And so obviously, I'm taking these big extremes to kind of demonstrate. But when we talk about what is possible, isn't possible for us as people, as humans, I think it's so important to just be open to the idea that we are capable of so much more than society will allow us to believe.
Yeah, I love that you say that. I trip out on that. I've shared it on the podcast and in programs. Like, seriously, guys, why are we not like really absorbing the placebo effect? Just exactly what you did. I hear you. And it's been going on since what? I think like the 80s or something is when they first started actually doing scientific studies, and that became, the placebo effect. And it's like, that literally shows us how our experience works. Like, why are we not? It's even in science for all the people that need scientific studies to back things up, to believe in it. It's right there. Like, what? Also things like projection, the shadow, things like that. We've been talking about this in psychology. So whether it's scientific studies or it's psychology, or you want to say law of attraction, law of correspondence, you want to go, spiritually, we live in a hologram, like whatever, it's all the same stuff. Like what we perceive is what we actually do end up receiving. And I'm writing a book right now. I'm almost done. And at one point when I was writing it, I had this beautiful metaphor come through about how when we're taking a photo, and say we are taking a photo of the sunset and it's on that sepia or whatever filter, it's all orange and red or orange and brown and stuff. you would take a picture of it, and on your phone, the filter is across everything. Like that's just what it looks like. If you took a picture of an apple, if you took a picture, whatever. And that's what we're doing. We have these glasses that give us this lens that washes over everything. So if the lens is, I'm not enough, or I'm awkward, I'm a weirdo, I don't belong here, nobody cares, I'm alone, like whatever, it'll splash onto every single thing that we do. So someone's 10 minutes late, it's, oh, obviously they don't care because I'm insignificant, right? Whereas they might have literally just got caught in traffic. It has nothing to do with that. So those are just some examples of how our perception literally goes across everything we do. And you said at some point here that it's usually things we don't even realize. It's been there since the beginning. You said it feels like a truth. And that's it. It just feels like, well, yeah, obviously I'm awkward. Like, have you seen me socially? It's like, but that was a lens that was given to you at some point. And it doesn't mean it's not ultimate truth, or like you were explaining with the reading, it doesn't mean you can't work through that, learn how, change it, shift it, our life is so malleable. And I just love how you describe that. What would you say, and if there's anything else you want to add to that, and also what would you say are some of the biggest limits that we carry, especially as you're saying with people that are just starting out in the work that want to, create something new? What do you feel are those really common things that we tend to carry, the perceptions?
Yeah, so I tend to think that there's three kind of really big beliefs or limiting beliefs that um, halter, is that a word? Halt people from creating the type of change that they want, especially because there's so many of these kinds of things. Oh, I've tried everything and nothing works. These kind of all or nothing statements. And I think it's really important to recognize first on, is there, what's the type of belief you have around your abilities or capabilities? Do you believe that you can change? Do you believe like you're able to change, you're capable of changing? Do you believe that change will do you good? That like actually change will take you out of the situation that you're in? And do you believe that it's actually possible in this world and whatever else for change? Because if we look at those things, and we often, we'll find things such as, I can't do that. I'm just not that type of person. Or I've always been that type of person. Yeah, my dad was like that, so I'm like that. All these kinds of ideas on your ability and capability to change, whether it's actually possible to change in general, and whether change will actually do you good. Because when we can figure out and work through those three core kind of like beliefs stopping change, well, then we open ourselves up to, okay, I'm actually capable of change. I'm able to change. I believe in change. And I think change will actually do me good. So I'm motivated to change. And then it opens the door to everything else. Then it's just a matter of, well, persistence and, practice. And okay, so I'm trying meditation. It's not a matter of, I've tried this 3 times, it's not working, because then that comes back to, do you believe meditation is going to work for you? Do you believe that, actually sitting down and meditating is right for you? Do you believe you're able or capable of meditating? But if you pass through those, then it's just, okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to figure out, I'm going to learn more about meditation. I'm going to learn more about different techniques or what techniques work for me. And I'm going to keep consistent with it and keep practicing it. And that's where the real change comes, with consistency, with the openness for it. And so I think, yeah, really, really just tapping back into those 3 kind of core beliefs. And from that, everything else seems to kind of stem off that.
Definitely. I really hear you in that, doubting our own capability to change, because we have these ideas, like you've said, like I self-sabotage, I don't have willpower, the motivation isn't strong enough or whatever, or I always let myself down. And just encouraging yourself to maybe even open up and realize maybe that's not a truth about you, but those tendencies of what you would say self-sabotage or not following through, they're coming from a wounding or something else going on inside that is addressable, that is healable. It doesn't mean actually like, oh, you're right, you're weak, you can't do it. It's how that's been expressed. It's like it's been a wound expressed versus a truth, an all or nothing truth that is concrete about yourself. And that's what I would think with things like, oh, I'm not very good at this, I'm not very good at that. But then I'd look at the things I was passionate about that I give like 111% and, you know, create these amazing things. And it's like, no, it's actually that didn't light me up the same. It's not that I hated it or that I couldn't do it. It was that maybe it wasn't for me. Like there's a lot of other reasons why maybe you're not sticking to exercise or you're not, you know, journaling every day like you think you should. Some people come to me thinking they should journal every day. And when we get deeper into they're like, I freaking hate journaling, but I love meditating or I love sitting in quiet. I'm like, well, you don't have to, you know, sometimes there's other reasons why we're not doing something, not just because we're lazy or we don't have what it takes. But that's what you touched on it in the beginning. We tend to just blame ourselves. We tend to just go into, it must be something I'm doing wrong. I would love to hear if you have a perspective on identity, because there was some things you tapped on, like I'm not a this person, I'm not a that person, and how identities come in with our beliefs and our perceptions with ourselves.
Yeah, funny to hit the nail on the head for what I wanted to bring up next from what you were just saying. So, and it's really that, you know, the type of way that we perceive ourselves, the identity that we hold for ourselves. At the end of the day, our subconscious does everything in its power to keep congruent with this identity. So it's the kind of thing, and I know because I used to be a smoker, and I would be like, oh, I'm a smoker, but I'm trying to quit. As long as I still identified as being a smoker, well, then it was impossible for me to quit because my subconscious would do everything in its power to keep congruent with this identity that I was a smoker. And so I keep going back to that. And so when we talk about these ideas of self-sabotage, you know, what self-sabotage is it's just our mind's way of bringing us back to the type of person that we identify with. And it's self-sabotage is a symptom for a bigger issue or a deeper issue. And so, you know, if we identify as someone who doesn't actually believe that they're possible for success, and if they believe that, you know, success would make them feel awkward in front of the people around them, or that success would, you know, maybe not allow other people to be authentic with them or true to them because they'll be seen on a different level, then they're going to procrastinate or to you know, do different like self-sabotaging actions to reaching that success, because they identify with someone that doesn't actually want it or doesn't actually feel it's right for them or doesn't actually want to tap into that kind of energy. You know, you can't become successful but don't believe that you are someone who is successful. An entrepreneur doesn't, you know, just become an entrepreneur. It doesn't just become successful. They first believe that it's possible for them. They first believe that they can. They believe that, you know, it's that they deserve it and that, you know, they're worthy of it. And then they go out and make the success. They don't just make the success and then be like, oh, yeah, I guess I could believe that I could do it. And so when we look at our identity, it's so we have to understand how we currently perceive ourselves, how we currently self-identify, and if there are things that are blocking us from the type of goals that we want to get to, well, then it's going to show up in our identity, which is going to show up in the type of self-sabotage that we have, the type of thought patterns that we have revolving around different situations. So it's definitely, you know, we look at shifting those thought patterns, shifting those belief systems so that we can essentially, with time, shift the identity, because it's the identity that you know, kind of shapes everything. The runner runs. You know, you don't just run but not see yourself as a runner. Like, if you don't see yourself as a runner, you're never going to run. There's always going to be an excuse as to why now's not the right time. You're not fit enough. You don't have enough, energy. You don't this. It's too late. It's too hot. It's too cold. It's whatever. But the runner, there's no excuse. That's what they do. They run because they identify with that. So we want to shift, shifting our identity to back to who we feel is right within us, and recognizing what our personal values are, recognizing what our personal, like you said, what lights up our own flame, what our personal, desires and wants are, what feels right within, because that's who we truly are inside. And once we connect back up to that, well, then we create the type of life that is meant for us.
I love that. That it's so, absolutely, it's so true. You don't identify, and it's almost like as soon as you start doing something too, you're like, oh, hey, I'm a gym person now. And then when you see someone else be like, oh, I just got back from the gym, it's like a part of you perks up because you're like, ooh, that's me too. But when we're waiting for the end result to create the identity, that's when we're waiting for a real long time. It's like, I like to tell people that like being it and action creates confidence, not waiting around on the couch for confidence that then drives us to take the action. It's the other way around. And I love that you're talking about the identity that way, because who we perceive ourselves to be will be that thermostat, the upper limit, right? So we want to be someone who is fit, but we've never seen that. So we can only allow ourselves then to get so fit or do so many things till our subconscious kicks in and like brings us back down, that upper limit. Like we've reached the top of the limit of what we've known ourselves to be. And now we will do what, people would say self-sabotage or hold ourselves back. It's not the self-sabotage that's the problem or what's actually holding back. It's usually the identity underneath. And I would love to hear your take on this, how we can start to bridge that gap, because that's something in manifestation people are just so sick of and so over. Like, I'm a millionaire. And they're like sitting there in debt. That doesn't work anyway, but we can start to shift our perspective. And I had this one client that is just here to make, millionaire through a very service-based way. And she's just like, I just don't feel like a millionaire. So we came up with this middle identity that she was now a millionaire in the making. And she felt good about that. And every day she'd say, I'm a millionaire in the making. I'm a millionaire, like on the way. And that bridged the gap between I'm broke and I'm a millionaire, which didn't feel right. So how can we, and the work that you do, how do you help to bridge the gap when we're looking to become something that is radically different than what we feel right now?
Yeah, and really that's exactly that we want to stay realistic with where we're coming and realize that it's a journey to get there. That so many people, if we're like heavy depression, to be like, I'm confident. Well, you're not, and then you're lying to yourself, and that's just not going to feel good. And then you're going to feel even worse because you're saying, you're just lying to yourself, and it's not going to feel nice. But if we start bridging that gap to, today I'm feeling okay, rather than I'm depressed. Because for so many people, they'll say like, I struggle with depression, and I say to them, and you're going to continue as long as you keep saying that. Because how do we get out of depression while still saying I struggle with depression? So I want to take that, that next step forward and say, I used to struggle with depression. I used to be someone who was anxious, but now I'm feeling okay. Now I'm working towards a better life. Make it progressive. Make it something that's a journey that you can be working towards. Is really important. And also to keep it positive, to not say like, I don't want to be depressed, because the negative, our mind doesn't comprehend what that negative aspect is. It just kind of hears the words depressed. Or if you say, I don't want to, I'm blanking here, but yeah, the idea of I don't want to be afraid. I don't want to be scared to show up. And these ideas of like keeping negative forms, you're still kind of putting out there what you're not wanting, and your mind's just hearing these things over and over again. It's like saying, don't think of a pink elephant. You're going to think of that elephant because that's just, it's been implanted there. But if we start saying like, it's important for me to express myself openly, or I'm choosing me because it's important to fill my own cup, or today I love myself a bit more. Make that kind of progression. Also using the word yet. So like with the millionaire, I'm working, I'm going from I'm depressed to I'm working. No, it's the thought lost me. But what's really important is that kind of just progressive balance, and finding that neutral space in between where we're wanting to go, and that kind of neutral space in between of we're moving out of it, and slowly and step by step.
Absolutely. Because the truth is you're not where you used to be. And there are things in your life now that you're experiencing that you used to desire, that you used to, pray for or try to manifest or whatever. We are always in progress, so I love that you were talking about not focusing on the negative, because when you say, I don't want to be depressed, it is the subconscious picking up on the depressed. But also, if you think about that statement, I don't want to be depressed anymore, like built into that is the statement of I'm someone who's depressed, because you're literally saying, I don't want to be this anymore, which means I currently am that. So instead of, I don't want to be afraid anymore, I don't want to be nervous to show up online or something, it can be flipped into like, I'm focusing on being brave. I'm focusing on even pushing through the fear, doing it anyway, or like you said with yet, I'm not a millionaire yet, but I'm working on it. If that is something that's really important to you. And I love, and the power of language, right? I'm sure that this is something you talk a lot about, because our language, not only from the outside, like you need to control your language because then people get all worried, but it shows the truth of what you think. It shows the hidden beliefs that you may not be aware of, or you're focused so much on like being positive and all this stuff. And then you're with somebody who's like, man, the economy sucks. And there it all comes out. You're like, yeah, there's no way I can get ahead. Like to be just aware, not just of the words you're choosing, but to see and listen to your own words, because that can often show you as well something that you've wanted to positive yourself through or gloss over, but it's actually what you truly believe. So do you work with people with that? Like the power of their language? Obviously you're saying to be positive, but just in everyday life, is that, do you see that as important?
Yeah, 100%. And I love that you finished the sentence that I blanked on I'm not a millionaire yet, or I can't do this yet, was the examples that I was looking for. So thanks for for finishing my sentence with that.
It's all good. I read minds. It's cool. Just kidding.
But definitely like the power of our words are so, when we talk about being spellcasters, it's really that, because our words are what create the feelings inside, create the type of thoughts, and those types of thoughts are going to create how we're feeling. Those types of thoughts are going to create what we feel is possible and not possible. So the type of words that we think, also the type of words that we say, hold so much power. For example, I've taken out the word hate from my vocabulary because it's just not an emotion that I want to feel. But for people who just kind of throw it around, oh, I really hate that. I hate traffic. I hate, to hate traffic. When you're stuck in traffic, hate is such a strong word to be in a car in traffic.
Somewhere you choose to live.
Yeah, it's just not an emotion that's deserving of your like time and a feeling. There's so many words. Also, we spoke about it before, and the idea of should or shouldn't, that just brings this kind of heaviness on pressure on how you could be doing something. You may want to be doing something, but to should be doing something, well, then how do you feel if you don't do it? How are you feeling if you keep thinking, I should have gone for that run? Well, it's going to make you feel really bad that you didn't go for the run, or instead of just, I could have gone for a run, maybe I'll go tomorrow. I could go for a run tomorrow. I'd like to go for a run tomorrow. I want to go for a run tomorrow. Also, the idea of try, the word try. So many people will say, "Yeah, I'll try that new technique. I'll try to think differently. I'll try and do something." And when we use the word try, it kind of gives a bit of boundary, a bit of like cushioning for getting out of it. Yeah, maybe I'll try and do that. I didn't do it. But if we want to feel a bit more determined to do things, then they're like, you know what? I'm going to go and do that. I'm going to do my best to do that. I'm going to put myself in the best possible place in order to do this, instead of just constantly trying, because it also brings in that kind of, I could let myself down, or if I tried and then it didn't work, or I failed. And even the word fail is just a unnecessary word when these mistakes or these kind of negative outcomes can be seen as growth, can be seen as positives, can be seen as ways of moving forward and learning more about ourselves. As soon as we use the word failure, then not only do we feel bad about the situation, but we feel bad about ourselves within that situation, and the way that we should have been, and the way that we should have done better, and how that it just, there's so much kind of weight in these words, that when we begin to become more specific and more precise with our wording, then it's going to have a lot of a lighter heartedness feel on just your everyday life. And so, I tell clients that it's so important to just throughout the day recognize the type of words that you are saying to yourself. If there is a specific word that you're saying, that you hear yourself saying often, and it kind of, you feel yourself clench, or you feel your muscles tighten up, whatever, just become aware of that type of word and what that word might be. And if there's a different word that you could use that more or less has the same kind of impact, but in a lighter, more friendly feel to it.
Absolutely. And I love that you're using these very real life examples, like, oh, I should have gone for a run. It's like you're always discovering what you want and what you don't want, what feels good and what doesn't feel good. So if today you said you were going to go for a run, but you didn't, instead of going like, oh, I should, just coming back to like exactly like you said, your priorities, and no, wait a minute, running is important, or going for a walk is important to me. I didn't get to it today, and for me, I'm a human design reflector. I don't know if human design means anything, but that's like, it's like I'm absorbing everything, and I look at it and I go, okay, where did I go off track today? Because I'll use that as a reflection. I kept filling tiny tasks. And before I knew it, it was time to cook dinner and I didn't get the time. Noted. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to go out for my walk early before I start, or if I start witnessing myself filling up the day with these little things, stop and go for the walk or the run. So it's like, learn from it instead of just shoulding. It's like we're uncomfortable with feeling this perceived failure. So we say should to kind of, I don't know, make ourselves more comfortable, something to gloss over. But really, we could just take inventory. Think about it like, almost not like it's a business, but I think about this with life sometimes, where I go like, what works and what didn't work? Okay, that didn't work. I didn't set up my day for success. By the time I got to it, it was too late. So what can I do tomorrow? Because going for a walk or going for a run is actually important to me. That is like, I say grow through what you go through, because sometimes, like, instead of saying it was right or wrong, it's like we need to grow through it. So if health is important to you, going for a walk, how can we make tomorrow like have a better chance of actually doing it versus just shame? Like, and then we get to learn, like, see, I'm lazy. See, I can't show up for myself. And it ties into all those other beliefs we have. But we're always learning, So yeah, that is so powerful. And one of the last things I want to ask, and as we start to wrap up, something that I've become aware of and I will teach on is meaning making. And a lot of this is what you've been pointing to, and how our brains are these meaning making machines. And that's what we're doing all the time, is like, if a client comes to me and is like, oh my goodness, I hate my job. I'm 40. I should really be in a different place by now. And I go, what are you making where you are in life mean? And it's like, oh, then it can be heavy sometimes. But something like going for a walk or something like the way that you eat or whatever, what are you making that mean? And sometimes when we dive into that, it's like, I'm an awful person. It's like, okay, then we come back to the morals. Are you truly an awful person? So I'd be curious, like from your language, from your perspective, how our brain does that, why our brain does that, how we can start to reprogram that. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I think, what our brain essentially is doing is it's giving us, um, we're getting so much data in all the time from our external world, and our brain has to learn to filter, things that are going to be what it thinks is going to be most beneficial for us. And so it filters in out the things that it feels like is not relevant, and it filters us in the things that it thinks it is relevant. So if we're focusing our attention towards certain negative ideas and certain negative feelings or whatever, then we're going to give a meaning or give an understanding to certain situations that it may not be true. For example, like you're at the supermarket and the people behind you start chatting, and you look around, you're thinking, oh my God, they're totally chatting about what I'm wearing. Because that you're trying to find meaning into everything that's happening around us. That's just how our brain filters the information going on. And so if we understand that, then we can understand, well, how do we want to give meaning to my life? What kind of things do I want to focus on? And one thing that is really, super important is this idea of the more that we focus in on certain negativities or certain like ideas as proof for why the world is a certain way, then we're going to keep finding proof of it being that way. And so what we want to try and do is we want to try and challenge, because as soon as we can challenge a specific idea and disprove it once, well, then we already know that it's not fact. We know that it's not true. It's just, it may be a recurring event, but if it hasn't happened in every kind of situation, then we know that it's not the fact and the end all. It's just that we have been looking out for that. And so I think what's really important is when we start to become curious with other types of perspectives, we become curious with, well, how would I like to perceive this world? I understand now how I am perceiving it, and I'm perceiving the worst possible outcomes, and I'm perceiving, all the things that could go wrong, and I'm perceiving why everyone might be thinking badly of me, or why they might be judging me, why what I'm saying or doing isn't going to be good. But when we can take a step back and start asking the questions of, well, how would I like to perceive this? How might someone that I inspire to be, how would they perceive this? How might someone else, what might be a better way to perceive these things? And just become curious with other types of possible outcomes, other types of possible perceptions. And then we can kind of focus, shift our focus into these other perceptions, which then gives, can provide that meaning to the situation. So again, you look at say a traumatic event, and when we can find gratitude for having gone through that to grow, as you said, I love that, to grow through what you've gone through, then we're able to find gratitude from otherwise a, really difficult, challenging, painful event that has happened. If there's, certain things that our inner critic comes up to try and, bring all these ideas on, they're talking about me, or he's late because they don't care, or I'm not worthy of him turning up on time. Well, how can we shift that to mean something else? Of, well, maybe I hope he's okay, or he's probably just stuck in traffic, or who knows where he is. Maybe he's forgotten. Maybe he feels terrible about being late. Maybe, there's so many other possible outcomes for a situation, that when we just become open to providing some more meaning and providing different meaning than the ones that we're usually stuck on, then we realize that what comes to mind automatically at the moment isn't the end all truth to the situation at hand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny how we do that, right? Like something will happen in business. I have entrepreneur clients, they put something out and no one signs up, or, it's not what they thought. the meaning they make it is like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I should close the doors and fold, and maybe I should go and be a lawyer or whatever, right? We default into this meaning. Nobody wants what I have, or this isn't going to work. And I've learned through resilience over life, especially over a business of 9 years, where I go, okay, there's something to learn here. What are 3 other meanings besides that I'm a failure? Okay, what are some other things? Well, like you said about the person being late, it's like maybe the price point wasn't right. Maybe it was the dates for people. Maybe the marketing wasn't dialed in. Maybe I wasn't even that lit up about it. Like, are there other things, right? We're always learning what works, what doesn't work, what we want, what doesn't want, and we can kind of take it as information. That's really valuable information. When I launched that, it didn't work, or nobody signed up. So what are some ways we can workshop this and move through for a different outcome? Maybe I didn't even talk about it very much. I didn't get it out there very much. Next time, I'm going to spread the word. I'm going to spend a month, advertising. Like, there's just other reasons. Why didn't I go for a walk? Not because I'm lazy. Maybe I'm exhausted. Maybe it's the moon cycle. Maybe I've had an emotional day and I just needed to veg and not. Maybe I just forgot. There's a lot of other reasons other than, see, I'm lazy, I can't do this, right? So I love how you said that. That is so, so important. So I would just love to hear if there's anything unsaid that you would like to share with the community about creating, more of what you want in your life, manifesting, changing, transformation, all of that, and some of the most important things you think that we need to start with if we haven't already talked about it.
Yeah, something that I just like to leave people with is the idea, and I know this for myself, and hopefully you'll resonate with this, is that when I was at the darkest point in my life, and I had gone through this kind of depression, I was at the point where I was considering ending it all. And when I started coming out of that and recognizing that the depression, the anxiety, the want to end the pain through suicide came from the way that I perceived my life and the world around me, came from the type of self-talk that I had. So then it was kind of like, okay, well, if my self-talk was powerful enough to bring me to the edge of suicide, if my self-talk was powerful enough to bring me to the point where I was so low, that I was going to take it, well, then my self-talk could be powerful enough to create the life that I want. It could be powerful enough to make me feel empowered and confident and want to, become someone better and someone more, and tap into the power that I have. If it could really, that self-talk was so powerful that even though my life on the outside was good family and good, schooling and education, whatever else going up on the outside, if it was so bad on the inside, then it could be so good on the inside, as long as I had the tools and the know-how how to get it there.
It's like all that energy spent toward the darkness, when shifted toward the light, like, can you imagine what you're capable of? It's like,
Yeah.
that feeling. Yeah, that is so powerful. Thank you for sharing. And I'm so grateful just personally that you made it through that you used your pain and now help other people that are navigating maybe similar circumstances, or just feeling that frustration when it comes to self-growth and getting out of their head. We all know what that feels like. And so just, I see you, and I see that transformation that's massive from where you've been to where you are now, and using that to help others and using that for service is just so beautiful. So thank you for doing what you do, Ben. And I'm so grateful that we got to have this conversation. Where can people find you if they want to connect? Do you hang out on the Instagrams or the Facebooks, or do you have courses? Do you have a podcast, or where can we find you if we want to learn more?
Yes, so I'm mostly on Facebook. You can also find me on Instagram. I've got a beautiful growing community on Facebook that you can find, and I'm send you the links for that you can put in. But really, if you just look me up on Facebook, Instagram, and send me a message, I would love to just chat to you first. Connect with you first. Get an idea of what's going on for you in your life, what kind of where you are on your journey, and really just. I love speaking to people and understanding what's going on in their personal worlds, and creating that connection first and foremost, before any kind of website or this. I think we're just bringing in that connection is so important. So yeah, find me on Instagram or Facebook, and just say hi.
Great. Awesome. I will definitely put the links below for everybody to definitely go find Ben and, connect deeper. So thank you so much for being here and for what you do. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. This has been fun.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode on the Awakening Her podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation between me and my guest. And if you did, we would love to hear from you. Come find us on Instagram. All the links are below in the show notes. Take a screenshot that you're listening to this episode, sharing your takeaways or your enthusiasm for the show. Tag us both over on Instagram. And if you do that, I will send you a free gift. I really do hope you enjoyed this conversation, and I will see you in the next episode.